What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and I've been going back through the Black Mirror episodes and seeing, do they hold up? Are they still amazing? I actually never watched Black Mirror before, so this is my first time being able to watch all of them. Pretty cool. Season 3, Episode 2, Playtest. So this does have audio description on Netflix, and I'm going to talk about it. If you could click like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, send me some Taco Bell, whatever you got to do to get through to me. I know we just met, but I think we're going to be friends. I know I'm blind. It's not that weird. We're just I'm on YouTube, so it's not like I can come get you and boogeyman you in the middle of the night, and maybe you'll learn something along the way. So, other critics are like, I went into this blind. Well, I actually went into it blind. I do that. So I went into Black Mirror playtest blind. Shocking, I know. This stars Wyatt Russell, who is directed by Dan Trachtenberg here, which I thought was pretty cool that we got Dan in the Black Mirror directing franchise. This feels a little bit like it's up his alley. And did I love this episode? That's the question. So Russell plays Cooper, or Mr. Cooper, or he just goes by Cooper, we kind of see him opening up at the beginning, and he's kind of just, his mom keeps calling him and he keeps ignoring his mom, and he heads off on this trip, and he's just sort of like jetting around the world doing all these crazy things, and he ends up eventually in the UK, where he sort of runs into this girl and tells her all of his crazy adventures that he's been on, and they sleep together, and he's ready to go, but there was some credit card fraud that caused him to be unable to buy a plane ticket home. And even though he could call his mom, who he's been dodging the call like a bunch of times, he chooses not to, and he calls the girl that he slept with, who's flattered, and so Cooper has a plan to just do some gig work around town. There's an app that they have for this. So he wants to do some light jobs to earn enough money to buy his plane ticket home. I feel like this thing was like somebody who works for Black Mirror is a mother and was really annoyed that their son wasn't calling them, so wrote this horror story for sons who don't respond to their mothers. That's what this is. So everything would have just been made so much easier if he had just picked up the fucking phone at some point in his TV show. So he ends up sees this gig for a high-paying job to test, like, for video games. And so his one night stand quasi girlfriend is really excited and gives him a whole bunch of context into the company, because he doesn't know anything about it. I mean, he's played video games, but he's not a gamer. And she's like, oh my god, if you could go in there, if you just snapped a picture of anything that they were developing, it would be worth so much money, and then you'd be able to buy your plane ticket home. Of course, they confiscate his phone, so he actually has to do the test. And it's this company that's been doing sort of, they've been working a little bit with, I'm going to go with super augmented reality. They're taking augmented reality to the next level. It's not even, it's like the next step beyond virtual. So they actually have to implant something in Cooper for this to work. And at first, he sees something, relatively benign and harmless, just to prove that the device works. So he plays this like whack-a-mole game that's kind of cute. And I was like, with Black Mirror, you're always like, at what point is this going to be nefarious? I was like, is he going to be attacked by whack-a-moles? So he does a whack-a-mole game with his hands and knocks out all the moles. Then he moves on to the harder stuff, and they're like, okay, well, there is a harder level. It pays more, but it's more dangerous. And he's one of these people also who gets handed these like terms and conditions documents and doesn't read them. He's like, it says you're gonna like harvest my kidney, right? Okay. So he signs off on that. So he ends up in the next experiment, and I didn't quite get how his phone got to this room, because his phone was confiscated early on by the assistant. I thought they made a pretty big deal about it, but it comes back around at the end, and I was like, what? I was like, why? How did his phone get in this room? Anyway, I like this episode. This is my like least favorite episode of Black Mirror, I think, so far. Because it has so much promise. Oh God, it's so close. It is so close to being like the best Black Mirror episode, but they decide to go kind of generic with it. So he puts on these things, like this could have been a Blumhouse movie. So he gets the implant, and what they do is they cater like they call it like a thrill ride experience. So basically, the game designer, the Japanese game designer, I think he's Japanese, I don't know. He's not in the episode very long. Talks about fear and the adrenaline rush from fear, and he asks Cooper, why do you like it? And he's like, I don't know. And it's like, because they survived. So you think it's like, no matter what Cooper is going to go through, that he's going to survive at the end of the day. Now, this is why you psych test people before you do stuff like this, but some of this didn't make any sense. You got a little bit of it, but we don't actually know what Cooper's really afraid of. We do see the thing with the mom, and I think that's where the story should have gone, is instead of, because you think it's going to be a traditional like horror game, you know, where it's going to pull whatever it is that you're scared of. If you're scared of ghosts, you're going to get ghosts. If you're scared of zombies, you get zombies. If you're scared of vampires, you get vampires. If you're scared of snakes, you get snakes, you know, that kind of thing. It's kind of that. It becomes that. So he gets, the first thing is he gets this like spider, but we have no real establishment that he's scared of spiders. But there was a guy that he passed on the way in that had like a spider design on his shirt. And I'm like, but that doesn't mean he's scared of spiders. So this is just like a thing that we put in here because spiders are cool and scary, I guess. He's in this like sort of older style home. It's all in his head, but I mean, like, that's the location that they've given him. And then later on, he gets this weird sort of apparition that is like a version of this bully that he did mention one time while he was in bed with the one night stand girl. I forgot her name. She's not important. He has a little scar, and she asks him what it is, and he's like, oh no, it's from this bully that I had. And so his memories of the bully make him the apparition, but the apparition didn't do anything. He just fucking stands there. It's such a he's not actually, I guess he's not scared of the bully anymore. It's just the presence of. And for me, at least, for dreams, I always notice in my dreams, the ones that I can remember, that it's sort of, my brain sort of amalgamates and takes people from all different periods of my life. The cool thing about being about having been sighted and dreaming blind is that I still see things in my dream, but everything is like in the past. So when I dream things, I dream people like from high school, but they're like in my real life now. I was like a grown adult, and my brain just like pulls them and tries to like age them up. So this part of it was kind of cool. He just doesn't do anything with it. They're just kind of like, he just kind of stands there. And then he has this weird thing where he imagines that somehow the spider and the bully became like the same thing. That wasn't really well described in the audio description. He kind of described it as better, like vocally, because he's talking through an earpiece supposedly to the woman who's leading the test. So after that, it doesn't really, that's nothing. There's a banging on the door, and it ends up that this girl has come to get him, and she's like, "Oh, this is terrible." And he's like, "Wait a minute, how'd you even?" He's like, "Well, your phone. Find my friend." It's like, I mean, like, I knew this was bullshit anyway. Like, the whole thing was either staged from them, like she worked for the company. Like, I was like, this is the dumbest thing. He's in the middle of this secure facility, and you're telling me this random chick just ran in there and rescued him like she's the Black Widow? No way. So I was like, either she was a plant from the beginning and helped in the recruiting process, and this is all part of, because supposedly he's able to touch her, which is one of the things, like, the apparition is an apparition and he doesn't touch the apparition. But with her, she sort of turns into a nightmarish version of herself and tries to kill him and stabs him. And because he kind of calls her bluff, and he's like, "You're not real. You're not really here." And then that's when she turns into like the horror version of herself and tries to kill him. And he talks about how he could actually feel the pain, but he didn't actually get stabbed, like, at the end of the day. So he wants out. He used the safe word, which was stop. He said stop like multiple times. And so the person on the other end of the headset, and the headset's been kind of like fuzzy and kicking in and out, is like, "Okay, so we have an exit point for you, but you have to go upstairs." And I'm like, "Isn't there a front door? It doesn't even matter what the exit point is. Why does he have to go upstairs?" I'd be like, "No, this is dumb. This is obviously, the headset isn't even real. Like, not only is the girl not real, but the headset's not real. None of this is real. I just need to wait for this thing to be over." Or start trying to imagine myself like a way out, like try to imagine myself positive things that I can use to fight back. Give me like a sword or something. So, but he goes upstairs like a dumbass and goes into this room, and she's like, "You have to open this door. The door is the way out. I promise you, there's nothing on the other side of the door that can hurt you." And it's just like, on the other side of the door it's just a bedroom, and then like on the other side is like his mom just crying. And eventually he gets woken up, but that's not the real wake up. And then he gets woken up again, and then that's not, and then he basically, we hear something about like how that whole thing was just like 1 second. And at one point he tries removing the device. I'm like, "No, you can't remove the device." But this whole experience basically happens in milliseconds, because the phone rings. It's his mother, that he never picked up the phone. And what we see finally is that the phone ringing, it was in the room. And I was like, "Why is this phone in the room?" She took it from him in the beginning, and turned it off, by the way. And somehow it's ringing again. I'm like, "Why is the phone ringing again?" So the phone rang, and it killed him because it interfered with the implant. Like, how they're always saying, like, "Turn your phones off, turn your Game Boy off. It's going to crash the airplane." So yeah. So he dies. It plays a little bit one of the times he wakes up and he can't remember who he is. And that was the interesting thing. That's what I wanted them to see, is because what they did was so easy. What they did was basically like the haunted house thing. It's basically what Blumhouse would do if this was like their kind of movie. It's like, "Oh, it's a chip. Oh, there's spiders and ghosts and the kind of shit that people normally kind of think about. But we're putting a cool spin on it because he recognizes the ghost." Bruh. Anyway, so the thing I kind of dodged because I wanted to talk about it more in detail is he talks about the past. Like, one of the reasons, because she asks, one night stand girl asks, "Why aren't you calling your mother?" And so he kind of talks about it. He's like, "Well, he spent the last, however, I can't remember how long it was, but he spent a long time caring for his dad, who was suffering from dementia and was losing his mind and was remembering less and less." And when you're around something like that, I think that's why he's doing this sort of like bucket list vacation thing, is he's worried that that's going to come for him. Sort of like, I think people who are in these, because a lot of these things are genetic, so you're more inclined to get it if somebody ahead of you had it. So if you know somebody in your family who has been diagnosed, you might be more inclined to do a bucket list thing because you may think, well, what if I get ALS or Parkinson's? So he ends up bringing that up, and I was like, that's where you go, because he talks about fear, your deepest, darkest fear. And I was like, his deepest, darkest fear, I think, is dementia. And I was like, why can't that just be the whole fucking story? Is him slowly losing his mind and not remembering things. So they throw that in, but they do it really fast. So he loses his mind like really fast instead of slowly. Instead of envisioning a world maybe where one night stand girl is his girlfriend and then has to take care of him because he could envision that whole thing for himself and put himself in his dad's shoes, and this episode would have been so much better. And then, because they don't know what his fears are, because they never did a psych eval on him, so they wouldn't know what he's going through. So he goes through and lives the entire dementia experience. Because when you have this kind of tech and you go, what are people afraid of? It isn't always going to be spiders and ghosts and killer ex-girlfriends. Sometimes it's going to be stuff like dementia or loneliness, or like being alone, or I don't know, claustrophobia. I mean, like, it's going to be these other things that people are afraid of. So it plays so well into it with the setup of him not wanting to talk to his mom. Why doesn't he want to talk to his mom? That should have been explored. Instead, they just use his mom as a kill switch. It's so weird. And it's also, it's like, should have picked up the phone. Because if he had picked up the phone earlier, he could have told his mom, listen, there's this credit card fraud thing they're processing, but so I can't fly out of England. It's going to take them a while. Could you send me some money so I can get out of here? He would have that conversation. Also, he never would have been in that facility to begin with. The phone never would have rang to kill him. All that stuff would have never happened. So, yeah, it's the least interesting path forward. It's the first time I've ever been truly disappointed in a Black Mirror episode. So, and it's got Dan Trachtenberg on it too. And I'm like, but why? But why are you here? What about this drew you to that? For somebody who subverted a lot of expectation by jumping back into the Cloverfield franchise and giving us a Cloverfield movie that didn't feel like a Cloverfield movie, but was sort of like an excellent little horror movie in and of itself. And somebody who really sort of changed the way we look at Predator movies with Prey. What about this stood out to him? It's bizarre, because this is the kind of modeling crap that you get from the sort of mediocre Blumhouse movies that release every once in a while where nobody really cares. It's not even their A-list title for the year. It's just we made a film, guys. Blumhouse. Or it's like a Shudder title or something, it's just anybody could have done this. So, but they slapped a Black Mirror label on it, and I'm like, playtest? Meh. I thought Wyatt Russell did a nice job. Everybody else is okay. They don't have nearly the amount of screen time. This whole thing's basically shaped around Russell. He has an affability to him that comes through in the roles he plays, and it plays here. So, would I do it? No, I wouldn't do it. No, I don't want things implanted in me. That would have been the draw the line thing. I would have done like a VR and augmented reality test or something like that. But the minute they're like, we have to implant something in you, I'm like, no, you don't. Nope. Not doing that. So, yeah. No, I wouldn't have done it. And, even if it wasn't like a haunted house fear thing, even if it was like, but you could experience that and be like, I don't trust your tech. You're here for me to test it. And that's not good. This hasn't been tested. I'm not a test monkey for implants. We're not doing that. Other people can do that. And then afterward, after you've run all of those safety checks, then we can come back around. But no. So yeah, no. Does it hold up? I think people would do this. I do think people would do this. I think, yeah, I think especially if you think about it on a larger scale of what they end up developing, if you could implant essentially video games so that every experience for you is like some version of this virtual augmented reality inside your head. I think there are so many gamers that would do that. They'd be like, oh my God, I can imagine my own games. I don't even have to have a TV. I can just sit there and veg out. You know? And just like, oh my God, I'm in Call of Duty. I'm doing a really good job. I'm killing it. Like, yeah, I mean, theoretically, the idea, if they really had the safety of it and you really didn't die and it was the thrill, yeah, I think conceptually, there are a lot of people who would do this. Maybe not everybody. I don't think it would be the number one. It would take a long time for people to, although a lot of people started injecting themselves with Ozempic pretty fast when they were like, wait a minute, this might help me. It's a diabetes drug. Fuck it. I don't have diabetes, but I'm willing to see what the long-term effects of injecting a diabetes drug are in me. So who knows? I don't know. Maybe it would be the fastest selling gaming device of all time. So I didn't like this. This is the first Black Mirror episode I just didn't like. I thought they had it. They had glimpses and they had glimmers and they had the setup, and then they just didn't do anything with it. And then they went the other route with it. And I was like, wait a minute, is he afraid of spiders because he saw spiders on somebody else's shirt? This isn't like really like an arachnophobia episode. This isn't very strong for that to be the first thing that he thinks of. And then when you realize that he made a passing note about the bully, you're like, okay, we didn't spend nearly enough time talking about other things he's afraid of, but we did establish the fact that he won't talk to his mom and that his dad died of dementia. Those are the things that we should be talking about in this augmented reality horror system, not the typical crap. Don't do the typical crap. Black Mirror a lot of times excels when it subverts the expectation and doesn't go down the typical route. Here, it just was like, let's serve you really basic shit. Here's your pumpkin spice latte. Enjoy. Audio description here was okay, but like I said, the modified spider, I don't think the audio description was that great on it. So yeah, it's okay. Not even my favorite audio description track for the Black Mirror episodes. I don't think I'm ever going to go lower than this. I hope not with Black Mirror, but I'm going to give this episode a C. Because if this was a movie, I thought it was just average. I thought it was just like, okay, I'd have a hard time figuring out if I wanted to go thumbs up or thumbs down. Because it's not really scary. I don't know that it's really meant to be. It's more frustrating when you see the cool ideas and you realize that they don't see the cool ideas and that they think the other cool idea is sort of like how I felt like with the Acolyte. I was like, no, Star Wars is why you're cool. You don't need witches. I don't know why the Star Wars TV shows keep trying to bring space witches in, but it's like, no, Star Wars is what makes you cool. The Force, Jedis, Yodas, Chewbacca's, you know, there's plenty that already, you don't need the typical shit. I don't need Star Wars to suddenly do like a, what if zombies were here? What if vampires were here? I don't need that shit. No one does. Please don't do it. So Black Mirror pushes itself into really interesting, thoughtful ways, but it didn't do that here. It crams it into like an afterthought. So disappointing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side. What the fuck?